Why would somebody want to replace a fabric? Well, you might want to replace a fabric because maybe you repainted your house.
Oh, yeah.
That is really common. You repaint the house and
now that doesn't look so good.
It doesn't look the way you want it to look, right? Not that it doesn't look so good, but it doesn't fit anymore. So that might be one reason. I just went to a client who had, I sold him an awning fabric. He needed a new fabric. So I found out that his fabric was originally this color. Because over the phone he said, oh yeah, my original fabric was terracotta. I said, look at that, it's still there, because the awning was almost 30 years old. Oh. So you buy an awning, it has a fabric on it. And then you do a recover. And then you do one more. And that might be it for the frame after that. So it's almost, it's 3 fabrics, right? So it's about 30 years. Well, he looked at this and he goes, no, that's not the, I said, it is. That's the color you originally had.
Maybe it's faded now.
No, it didn't even resemble this color. I said, hey, I'm going to take some measurements here. And he goes, okay, I'm going to bring my fabric book to my wife. So his wife picked this. So this is a textured fabric. It's from the Silica series. And while it's not brand new, so this is Silica, he picked Silica Sesame. She did, I'm sorry. So what a vast change from what was that to now that. This is, the Silica fabrics are really, really popular. And one of the reasons why is because the problem with a fabric like this, it's a true solid. You see very little variance versus something like that. This is actually a new series called Hogan, and this is Hogan Flame, but it's a lot different. So the advantage of having something with texture is you'll notice environmental staining and aging less quickly.
Yes.
Right? When you have a very uniform fabric, and it can be as dark as you want, it could be even a black colored fabric. Well, you're still going to notice the fading. You'll have uneven wear on it, and you'll notice any type of stains. Oddly enough, these are super big targets for birds, but you don't see a lot of bird markings on awnings. Maybe in certain areas, but even on a dark, like a dark navy blue like this, you'll still notice more wear on it more quickly than if you had something with some texture. And I know with the camera it's hard to tell, but when you put them side to side, it's noticeable. So the texture really helps. The other thing too is with stripes, it'll even be less noticeable than with, say, a solid with texture. You'll notice the environmental staining a little bit less. So when we go out to somebody's house and they want help, we'll give suggestions, and we'll give input. I don't want to pick the color for you because that's very personal. One has to live with that for a while. And we can help with the color palette. There's not that many here, maybe 150 different fabrics. So it's easy to isolate what you don't want. You said, hey, I like the reds. A lot of people don't like red, right? This is from Sunbrella, which is owned by a European company. But all this material is actually loomed here in the United States, in North Carolina. So this palette is really for the North American market. If you go to a European palette, you'll see far more variances in these really, really bright, bold colors, including, more stripe patterns too. Like this one right here, the Saxon chili. I just don't sell a lot of that. Maybe some in Hawaii, but not a lot here. Here, what people will go for are things that blend in with the house. Whereas in Europe, a lot of the houses, perhaps they're built of concrete, and the awning might help provide contrast. So again, when I go out, I can provide some input, but I'm going to have a bias towards what I might like. And I don't know what they're trying to achieve. Once I understand what they're trying to achieve, Well, maybe they can go with like silica sesame versus silica dune here if I can find it. This is silica, yeah, there it is, silica dune. So maybe they go with that. And the interesting thing too is it's best to do this outside because we're sitting under fluorescent light, so there's a lot of blue, and it will affect the color. So if you do this inside, it's not the same as it is outside. And also, if possible, you try to hold it up to the sun because you're looking at it, you know, through this thing, and you're going to get the sun and it will illuminate it. So the shade's the same. So whether you get a fabric that is, you know, a really, really light color like this silver fabric or oyster versus, you know, a dark blue, the shade characteristic is still the same. However, the ambiance, so whether you have this really bright white or, you know, maybe kind of a charcoal tweed color, the ambience underneath the awning is different.
That's right, because like a bright white would just make it so bright underneath.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 This will be like a spotlight.
Yeah.
But you're still going to get the shade.
Very cool.
It just feels a little bit different. So one might want to beware about getting fabrics like maybe this bright orange. It might be a little bit disturbing. I've sat under bright green ones in there. It's a very interesting feeling, right? Because you're almost creating a new room at the press of a button. You know, and the larger the awning, then the greater expanse of fabric that you have, that surface area. So if you have something like this, it might be kind of neat because it's really, you know, warm underneath it.
Oh, that's so cool.
We usually direct people to go for stripes.
Oh, yeah?
And then if they're not going to go for a stripe, it's more common to maybe go for something with texture. It's kind of like white car, black car, right? So by having the stripe, that's kind of the white car. You know, you can wash the white car and look at it. And if you're from a distance, it looks okay. If you get up close, it still looks pretty good. Black car, you wash the black car, and immediately you can see any type of environmental effects, dust and debris and stuff like that.
I love it. So if you don't mind, remind me the steps of getting the fabric replacement done.
Okay.
So first step, call and say, I would like to replace my fabric. Second step, pick a color. Third step.
I think it goes back to, hey, you've reached out to us, so then we're going to come to you, and then we're going to learn about you, and then we're going to see what we can add. And you know, if you're not in our family, then we'll get you into our family, and then we'll go from there. So really, the steps is reach out to us. We'll come to you and see what your needs are. And if we can put a new fabric on there, great. Then let's go over and see what colors one might be interested in.
And then how long does it take when someone says, okay, I want that fabric. You come back over here, you cut it, you do what you need to do to get it ready, and then the guys go over to the house and then do the whole thing? So
the fabric has to be, there's a couple other steps too, right? So you've reached out to us, we're going to come to you, we'll learn about it. Before we order anything, of course, you'll pick a color. We also have to take some precise measurements. Now, if it's something we built, and let's say we built it 30 years ago or more, typically we'll have the original build sheets. If we don't, we should take some measurements anyways. The last thing, you know, I want is for somebody to have a fabric that goes on their awning that doesn't fit. Right. So if we go to somebody's house and it's a model that we didn't build, then we really do take some precise measurements. And it's not too difficult. We just need to make sure that the awning fits on there, or that the fabric fits on that awning appropriately. And then after that, yes, the fabric then gets made, it gets wrapped up, put on a truck. We come out there. The guys will assess the situation. They're going to find out, hey, can we leave the awning on the wall? And what kind of awning is it? If it's an awning that has a shell, that becomes a whole different project, because over 10, 15, 20 plus years, you have debris that falls in there.
Right. As we
So-
can see from the shells over here,
Sure.
things might get caught up like leaves and dirt and stuff.
It's typically dirt, and there's some grooves in there. So that dirt has to come out. Because we don't typically take the awning off the wall. So you're probably wondering, how does the fabric come out of the shell?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Well, as long as there's enough room to slide it out from one side, then we'll slide it out. But imagine now we have a brand new fabric and we're sliding in and back into the shell. The shell has to be absolutely clean. And,
Otherwise, it's going to be a nasty fabric already out the gate.
and our guys over the years have developed some really interesting tactics to clean out all the dirt. Usually it's done dry first. Now, if we can't slide the fabric out, then it's got to come off. So we'll take it off, but the whole premise of cleaning the awning still applies. So the awning has to be as spotless as possible. Because the last thing you want to do is have dirty arms and put a brand new fabric on, and then you've marred it, and perhaps it touches the arm and gets a little dirt and oil.
And not our arms, but the
retractable arms,
retractable arms, yeah. Yeah.
So you just have to be really careful with fabric. So imagine you have the awning super clean, you put it in there, and there's sometimes you just can't wear gloves. I'm simplifying the process, because you have to get the whole tube out with the fabric on it. You have to clean everything. You have to put the fabric back, the new fabric on the old tube. And there's some processes that are involved to do that, because there's some little pockets, right? So there's some pockets that the fabric has to slide into, right? So on the tube, there's a channel that looks like this, so the fabric slides in there. So in order for that fabric to stay in there, that pocket just won't. If you put the pocket in there, you can pull it in and out. So there's actually some PVC tubing that you have to insert into that pocket, so it will expand and then it holds the fabric in there. Well, you can imagine that thing's up there like that. So you have to get that off too. And in the tube, there's that similar channel.
Wow.
So it's not just we're going to throw a new fabric on. Again, it's one of the more interesting and really time-intensive issues or installations that one would do.
So if someone was to order, granted, you have different times of the year, slower seasons, busier seasons, but if someone orders new fabric, what is the time usually it takes between ordering and having it delivered and installed?
Right. Just depending on the queue size. We always tell our salespeople, just say 4 to 8 weeks. Now in the summertime, it can be closer to that 8 weeks. And it's not the manufacturing process. It's the installation queue.
Got it. Because everyone wants it at the same time.
That's what happens, especially if we have any annual specials. And what we try to do every year is communicate with our clients that have awnings that are at least 8 years old. And why would somebody want to replace a fabric? Well, you might want to replace a fabric because maybe you repainted your house.
Oh, yeah.
That is really common. You repaint the house and
Now that doesn't look so good.
it doesn't look the way you want it to look, right? Not that it doesn't look so good, but it doesn't fit anymore. So that might be one reason. The other one would just be age. The retractable awning fabrics will tend to last a little bit longer than, or look better and function better than a fixed awning or a canopy, right? Because that thing's out there, rain, shine,
Right.
snow, winds. Whereas with ours, you can roll it in, put it inside of that shell, and it extends the longevity.
Cool.
But still, the real useful life of it is, somewhere between 12 and 15 years. And there's always outliers. You have people that come to us and they haven't replaced their fabric for 30 years. And it's still somewhat functional.
That's impressive.
But it's not unusual. The last one I went to, the fabric was not functional because it was just completely torn and shredded in various areas, to the point I had to be very careful rolling it in and out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know how many, and I needed to get some access for measurements. However, they'll have a really nice new awning that will do what they want it to do, provide shade.
Outstanding.
Yeah, yeah.